Live from America's heartland, this is the Daily Truth Report with your host, Noah Christopher.
Welcome back to the Daily Truth Report. And on screen is an old friend who's been on the show before and is back with us today, Connor Boyack. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. It's good to have you back on. We had you on, boy, it probably would have been last year, I think, in 2022. And we're really excited to get you back on. For those that don't know you, you're with the Tuttle Twins. And when I first heard about what you guys are doing over there, I just loved it. Got some small kids of my own here in the family and just totally love the mission. But for those who don't know you, maybe this is the first time that they are getting to listen to you and meet you. Give us the short 2 or 3 minute version of who you are and what you do over there.
Well, for those who don't know, the Tuttle Twins is a series of children's books that teach the ideas of freedom to kids. We published our first book in 2014. We've been at this a while. When we started, everyone was like, why do you need to teach kids about ideas like, entrepreneurship and natural rights and property rights and everything? And now everyone's like, oh my gosh, we got to teach all the kids, because they're being bombarded by all these crazy messages. And so we sold over 5 million books. We've got copies. We've got books for toddlers and teenagers and every age in between. And so really, we're trying to foster family discussions about powerful ideas that are often neglected in the schools. They're attacked in the media. And so our books give parents kind of a conversational opportunity to engage with their kids and talk about ideas that matter, the ideas of human flourishing, personal responsibility, the golden rule, entrepreneurship, education, and the like. So we've been at this, as I said, for about a decade. I got my start as running what's called a think tank. It's a nonprofit where we try and change laws and work with elected officials to shrink the size of the government. And I wanted to be able to teach my kids what the heck dad does all day. So literally one day went on Amazon hoping to find some books. There's books on potty training, there's books on sex ed, there's books on everything that you can imagine, but there were no books teaching these kind of core American ideas to kids. And so that's when my partner Elijah, who's our illustrator, he and I set out to do our first book. It was received very well. People started saying, well, when's the next one coming out? And so it's become this huge series, and we just love seeing the impact that it's having on families.
Yeah, that's great. I love it too. You've got talk to me about age group. Is it only for the older kids? You have stuff for every age group?
Yeah. So for those who are looking on screen right now, this is our core children's book series. We've got 13 of these books. They're about 60 pages, fully illustrated, fun storybooks. So the age range is kind of 5 to 11. The reality here is we have kids who are older who will still read these books because even though they're beneath them in terms of the format, the ideas are often fresh and new to older kids who have never encountered them before. And then the younger kids, or if they're read to by mom or dad, they can follow along because the illustrations are all really engaging even for the little ones. So it ends up being a broad age range. As I like to say, this particular series is great for kids age 5 to 11 and members of Congress because it's full of pictures. And then if you scroll down on the page, you'll see we've got other bundles. So we've got 2 sets right here for teens. We've got the one along the top is a fiction series. It's kind of like the choose your own adventure where you get to pick which way the story goes. So we got some fun fictional stories that are teaching these economic and political and civic type ideas through storytelling. And then the series on the bottom, those are hardback books, nonfiction. And so there we're teaching teens a little bit more directly things like logical fallacies. Every chapter, a different logical fallacy to try and understand, how to clearly think and critically think as well. So we have some nonfiction like that. And then if you go down, we've got some toddler books as well. These are a little bit cheeky. They're as much for, the parents to have a smile about and have fun with as it is for your child to really learn that F stands for Federal Reserve or G stands for gold or whatever. But they got super cute illustrations. They're really fun. And so we got some fun toddler books as well. And then we've got other items below. We have a cartoon with, graphic novels and all kinds of other stuff. But, importantly for what we're talking about today, I'm excited to share with your audience. We're just now launching that American History Volume 2. That's just now coming out. It's already shipping. It's still technically in pre-order, but we got the books in, and so we're just sending them out. And so, in fact, if you'll do me a solid, go to TuttleTwins.com / oh yeah, perfect, you're here /history. And so here you can see the 2 books. They're each about 250 pages long, hardback, beautifully illustrated books, going deep into American history, trying to help kids learn not just what happened. I mean, most textbooks, they're like, this battle happened on this date, and these people signed a letter, and these people said this, and this committee over to this group, like all this minutia. that we're forced to memorize as kids in public schools. But that's why I hated history. I hated the memorization, the regurgitation. I never did well with history. But I've since come to love history when it's told through storytelling, when you're just learning these amazing stories. And so I started to think, what would it look like to teach American history through storytelling? Not a textbook form, not just drill you with facts and names and dates and stuff. So these two books that we have use storytelling. They're big, just fun adventure stories where the twins are learning about history, but it's all done through story. And more importantly, we focus on the ideas of the past. It ultimately doesn't matter that you know who wore which color and what type of muskets they use and what hardtack was and what the clouds were like that day on the battlefield. Like that stuff might be interesting, but it doesn't matter. What matters is the ideas, the values, the principles, right? The ideas that they fought for, the tension of power, right? Between the state and the people, between warring factions. And that matters because those things are still relevant today. And so we can learn, you know, the quote, those who don't learn from the past are condemned to repeat it. We need to learn from the past and apply those lessons today. The textbooks on the market suck at doing this. They don't help kids learn from the past. They help kids learn about the past, but that's very different than helping them learn from it. And so our books are designed to help kids learn from the past. We talk a lot in the books about, okay, here's this thing happening more recently compared to what happened 250 years ago. Let's evaluate it. Excuse me. And so that's something we're super, super excited by. The books come with hundreds of pages of curriculum, all kinds of activities that you can get. We give you the audiobook as well. And so it just ends up being a big bundle when you buy it together. So it's a product we're really excited about because this is such a massive problem. I'll share this briefly with you, Noah, that maybe some of your listeners saw this, but a few weeks ago, a report came out saying that only 13% of eighth graders in American public schools, only 13% of them are proficient in American history. Failing grade, right? 87% are not proficient. And to me, that's alarming. It's astounding that the failure rate is that high. And you might say, oh, you know, COVID, learning loss, or whatever. Excuse me. Prior to COVID, it was only 18%. It was only 5 points higher. It was still a failing grade before COVID. And so to me, this is a travesty. Why? Because these kids become adults who are voters and they have the same voting power as you do and I. And they, if they're ignorant of history, if they're ignorant of the principles that our country was founded upon, then they're easily seduced to support socialism or big government or whatever because they don't know any better. And so I don't fault the students totally themselves. They've been bombarded with historical minutia that's uninteresting and unimportant to their lives. They haven't been taught history the right way. And so that's what we're setting out to do with these books is to inspire kids to become passionate about history through storytelling, and more importantly, learn those powerful ideas that relate to our world today. There's nothing like these two books on the market at all. We feel it solves a huge problem in educating kids, and so we're thrilled to get them out there into more homes.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And, you know, I like to think that I'm somewhat up to speed on history and current events, but then also history. But even when we had the pandemic, you know, you look back and all of a sudden we started going back and people were bringing up old pictures of the Spanish flu and whatever that was, 1919 or 1913 or whatever it was. And well, sure enough, they're all wearing masks again. And they just ran the same blueprint from 100 years ago. And I didn't know that until people started researching and then bringing that out. But if you don't know the history, it's all going to happen again. So this is wonderful what you're doing. It's so sad in one point because this is what the schools should be doing, and they're not. The schools are just a propaganda arm at this point. But this is the type of stuff that our kids should be coming home from school learning, and they're not. So kudos to you for. I mean that's what we do. That's what conservatives do. We see a problem and we find the solution and we just create it and bring it out into the world. So you're a living example of that. I love it. Tell me about these books. Tell me more about the books. I mean, you just told us a lot, but part 1 has been out for a while. Part 2 is what's coming out now. And looking at the dates on these, so part 1 covers. I think where is it? Right there.
It's from the 1200s through 1776. So volume 1 leads up to 1776. If you ask Ron Swanson, right, on Parks and Rec, he always said that 1776 is when world history began. But there were a lot of important things leading up to 1776. So volume 1 sets the stage.
Yeah, all the way back to 1215, right? I mean, we don't think of America as going back to 1215, but tell us what goes back that far.
Well, okay, so you've heard and your listeners have heard about the 1619 Project, and this is this neo-Marxist idea that we need to reframe American history as being really starting in 1619 with the mass importation of chattel slavery, African slaves. And their purpose, I believe, I don't think this is radical to say, I believe their purpose is to reframe American history such that we can disregard the contributions of the founding fathers because they were bigots and racists and slaveholders.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, more importantly for the neo-Marxists, we can discard the classical liberal ideology that they, believed, and what we would call today conservative or libertarian, but at the time it was liberal in the true sense of the word, liberty. And so we can discard all that because they were all slaveholders. So let's just go support socialism and this neo-Marxist vision for the future. So this is so critical, right? They're reframing the past. They're setting a narrative about the past that allows them to alter the direction of the future. This is why this is why history is so important, because how we make sense of the past, our past, collective past, how we make sense of it affects deeply how we go in the future and what happens in the future. So we chose 1215 because we were trying to say, all right, what really defines America? Is it the importation of slavery, which, by the way, was not a unique American thing at all? This was a global thing, including African countries themselves, blacks enslaving. Like, it was just it was everywhere. So what defines America? What can we look to in the past that sets a positive narrative or an accurate narrative that allows us to go in a better direction in the future? We chose 1215. A couple of reasons. That's when you had the Magna Carta, right? The first attempt to restrain the king and establish some codified rights and recognize individual freedom. So the Magna Carta was a hugely important precursor. But more broadly in the book, we talk about Marco Polo in the era of trade. So all along the Silk Road, you had all these people trading, hustling and bustling, and then that incentivized explorers to go to faraway lands in search of spices and treasure and things that they could bring back to this bustling market. And that exploration with Marco Polo and some of these guys, right? That led to colonization, because a lot of people would go to those new lands and be like, hey, I kind of like it here. I'm going to move here, right? And so that led to colonization, which led to America. So America really has its roots clear back in the 1200s with this Silk Road trade market of people trying to just better their lives, using the market to do so, having these incentives to go explore and produce and trade. And that, to me, is a positive framing of the past. I think it's an accurate one. If we say, look, America was really, like, with all its warts and bumps and everything else, we're not hiding any of that. We're very frank about it in the book. But look, setting aside all and not having the warts and bumps be the focus, we acknowledge that they're there. But the true issue happening here was people trying to better their lives, bootstrap themselves out of, servitude and being serfs and living off the land, hand to mouth. That to me is the true American story. And so that's why we chose to start clear back in the 1200s.
Yeah, that's great. So you move from 1215 all the way up to 1776, and then part 2, which is coming out soon. I think, is it July 4th that's coming out?
Yep, that's the official launch date. In reality, if you order today, we're going to probably ship before that. We got the books in the warehouse, so technically It's still in pre-order. But yeah, you can grab the whole bundle at a discount.
Okay, great. And then that one is a much shorter time period because we had a lot going on from 1776 to 1791. All of the foundational Constitution, Bill of Rights, everything else is in that period. And then I assume that leaves you open to have some future books in the series at some point.
Yeah, it's kind of like asking a woman who just gave birth when she plans to have her next baby, right? Like, there's a danger there in broaching that subject where we're just on the tail end of putting this book out. I'm like, I've got PTSD with how much work and time and energy went into this. But broadly speaking, a woman in that case might say, oh, we think we want 4 kids. I think I want, 4 books. I can imagine a volume 3 that goes, Birth of a New Nation all the way through, the war between the states, or the so-called Civil War, right? And so covering basically the first century or so, and then a volume 4 that does post-Civil War, so Reconstruction, all the way through, say, the Progressive era, and kind of the FDR and Woodrow Wilson and all these guys that really shifted America, what we might say, to the left. And really undermine some of these core American ideals, and so maybe a 5th volume at some future point where we go from like the Progressive era into the future through the world wars and things like that. So that's a bit far out, but right now we just want to see how people are liking these 2 books, how they do. We're working to get them into schools and libraries, and just trying to help kids have a better history education. And then if there's demand for more, then we'll make it happen.
Yeah, that's great. And we talked about age ranges for some of your other books at the beginning, but I see on this one you've got recommended ages for the America's History series, 7 to 13. Probably even better for older than 13. To, like you said, kind of look back, and it might be a little bit beneath them in style, but they could still learn a lot, I would assume.
100%. And it's frankly, it's that way for the adults as well. I can't tell you how many moms and dads will be like, oh, I learned something new. I never knew that. And And when we explain it in a more simple format, oftentimes these ideas are more accessible and understandable. So ultimately, we have to give a recommended age just so parents can make those, determinations. But these books, especially the history books, do end up serving a much broader age range, especially when you're reading them together as a family and then talking about it. We have the curriculum, as I said, that has activities and projects and things like that, especially if you homeschool. But whether you homeschool or not, right now, summer is great. It's like, hey, let's do an activity a day. Let's read a chapter every few days and work our way through it. It just makes for a good family learning opportunity.
Yeah, I could see this being great for homeschool, and then equally great if your kids are in public school. They they definitely need that supplemental support to combat some of the stuff that they're learning. So
Right.
I love that. And you also said something else that I think is so good. And I know I mentioned this the last time you were on the show, or at least it was an idea I had maybe after our interview was over. But these are great for your kids. They're great if you're a grandparent or you've got nephews and nieces. You need maybe a birthday present or just a fun out of the blue present. But great for family. But also great for libraries, school libraries, public libraries. So if you don't have somebody in mind that would benefit from this, I really think it's a tremendous mission to buy a couple of these books and donate them to your local school or local city library and get them out there for the people to be able to find in the library right along. Let's at least have some equal representation along with all of the other books out there that are telling kids how to do all sorts of stuff that's ridiculous for their age, and let's at least get some good books in there. So I love that as a mission. I don't know if you've heard stories of people doing that, but I mean,
yeah.
that's what an opportunity throughout the country. I mean, I'm sure there's thousands of local elementary schools that would love to have books like this donated.
Yeah, we have a lot of families who will buy double copies and then they'll donate a set, keep a set. We have some folks who reach out and ask about bulk ordering, right? So the price is cheaper, but then they can order like 50 and go place them in a bunch of libraries. Some people will do those little what are they called? The little tiny libraries or whatever, where someone on their front lawn will put up a little like birdhouse looking.
Yeah, we've got one of those around here. Yeah.
Yeah, free libraries, I think is what they might be called. And so we got people who go plant books in there, and it's so fun to see people trying to join in this cause, because I'll say this, I run this think tank. We change laws, we sue the government, we do all the things that these you would do as a freedom fighter, and that's great. It's important. We have to do it. We have to engage. But ultimately, I don't think our country is going to be saved at the Capitol. I don't think our country is going to be saved in the courtroom. If our country is going to be saved, I think it's at the dinner table.
Mm-hmm.
It's moms and dads being intentional about reading these ideas, reading about things like this, talking together, developing critical thinking, helping their children understand truth. Recognize that these messages that they're hearing in school or the media or from peers, like giving them context, talking about nuance, skepticism of authority. Let's not believe everything we're told. Like it's all these types of lessons that we, I think, have to be intentional about. And from my perspective, now with, I don't know, thousands of parents I've talked to over the decade of doing this, I think many, especially conservative parents, they have the desire to, they know they should, they want to, they just don't know how. And because they don't know how, they don't do it. They withdraw, they're insecure. They're like, well, I'm not an expert in history, so how can I, talk to my kids about history? And so the whole goal ultimately of the Tuttle Twins books is to basically be a support system for mom and dad. It's like, hey, you don't need to have any prerequisites. You don't need to have been an expert in economics or, have any background in entrepreneurship or know the intricacies of money or any of these things. Just get the books, sit down with your kids, read together. We have some discussion questions at the end, foster some family discussion. You're learning together. Maybe you go look up some YouTube videos and it sparks some curiosities. No prerequisites needed. So the whole pitch for mom and dad is, this is important. You really need to be intentional with your kids about some of these ideas. Get the Tuttle Twins books, start reading as a family, and just watch your conversations blossom and deepen.
Yeah, that's great. And I think maybe we talked about this last time or you were on, or I know I got some questions on it. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to say this wrong, but your mission really seems to be conservative values, true history of our country, and just education in that sense. I would guess that faith is probably an important thing to you personally and to your family, but not a lot of faith or religion covered in these books, and that's probably intentional, right? Is if keep the focus on just the educational history? Is that kind of the way these go?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of religious education material out there for parents who want to, take their kids to Sunday school or Bible study or anything like that. There's a whole market full of stuff to talk to your kids about religion. There just hasn't been anything to talk to your kids about, political principles, history, economic principles, entrepreneurship. And so those topics themselves aren't really religious. Now, my religious perspective very much informs my ideas on a lot of those topics. But my belief is that these core principles are as accessible to and important for an atheist as it is for a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or anybody else. I think these are ideas of human flourishing that transcend religious differences. And so you're right, our books don't go into or advocate any particular religion. They're very Christian friendly. I mean, most of our readers, I think, are Christian conservatives. So it's not like there's any problems. It's just that we try to focus on those core principles that can unite and improve humanity. Certainly, I believe religious principles can do that as well. But our books do focus on, as I said, like political principles, economics, civics, history, things like that. And so we've chosen to try and have a broad appeal to people of any faith background because these ideas are important for them and everybody.
Yeah, that's great. I just wanted to make sure I had that correct because I know I got
Yeah.
some questions on that. So that's I think that's a
Yeah.
great approach. Okay, one more question, and then we have an exciting announcement that I'll do here in just a minute. But I also got this question, and I was surprised. And I want to make sure I get this right too. But you operate as a nonprofit, is that right?
That is correct. Yep. Everything that we do is through a nonprofit. We reinvest the sales revenue into marketing the books so that we can just keep pushing them out there as much as possible.
Okay, very cool. So, yeah, I mean, that just really feeds into your mission. Very mission driven, what you're doing. I love it. Okay, so now I want to I think I'm clear to make this special announcement here, Connor.
Do it.
You're running with the launch here. You're doing a fun little bonus where if people buy one of the books, they're going to get added. You can see it right here. One entry into the vacation giveaway. You're going to send a family of 4 to Boston. It's going to be a random drawing. Let me actually pull this up over here. How about this one? There we go. An all expenses paid trip to Boston. And of course, Boston, full of the history that's covered in these books, to a family of 4. And everybody that buys a book gets an entry. And if you buy 2 books, you would, buy volume 1 and volume 2, you'd get 2 entries. And then you're going to do a random drawing. And here's the exciting part that I want to add on to this, because I really love what you're doing. I want to support this, and I want to incentivize people to get these in their family, get these in their local libraries. Let's just get the word out there so that we can fight back a little bit, because we're losing the battle right now in the hearts and minds for children. So I want to incentivize that. So if you buy, I'm going to put the link to this below. If you buy with the link that I'm going to put down here, that would give me an entry. But here's what we're doing, and here's kind of my exciting announcement. I can't travel to Boston right now. I'm too busy. So I'm gonna, if I were to win, I'm gonna give that to one of you that buys through the link below. So you're gonna get a bunch of extra entries because I'm taking my name out of the hat. So so I've already talked to Connor, and he said, all right, if your name is the one that wins, I'm just gonna go back in there and redraw someone else out of your people, and we're gonna give it to a WLT report reader. So I'm pumped about that. I don't know if we're gonna win or not, but we're gonna have some really good odds. And if you've got a family of 4, or if you want to find 4 people and go to Boston, you might be able to win. So anything else you want to add to that, Connor?
No,
give me more of the details.
Yeah, awesome of you to do this. It's exciting. I was in Boston a few weeks ago recording some videos for these promos and so forth. And man, there's so much rich history there. It was awesome. I could have spent way more time. And so this trip, if you win, it's the flights to get you there. It's the hotels to stay there. It is meals, stipend, it's just all expenses paid to go have some fun and see these sites and just have a blast. So we're super pumped. I think it's really cool of you to pass it on to one of the folks. But yeah, as a reminder, make sure to click the link in the description so that you can use the special tracking link so that we can track who's going to buy it from your link so that we can figure out if one of them become the winner.
Yep. And then that'll make sure that you're in that pool and you get an entry. Otherwise, you won't be in our pool. So we want to get you. I'm taking my name totally out of the hat, and I want one of you to win and go to Boston, and then hey, maybe report back or take some pictures and videos from the streets and send us some stuff back. If there's any statues left, I know they tore down a lot of them, but they still got a few statues to see over there, Connor.
Oh yeah, there were still a few standing. Yep.
All right, that's good. Well, so I'll put the link down below this video. But in general, if you're listening to this, it's Tuttle Twins, TUTTLE twins.com, and you can get there and see all the books. And really, all the books are great. And then if you want to get these 2 books, they're on sale here. If you look at my screen, 70% off right now to grab the bundle here, and that'll get you part 1 and part 2. And I couldn't love what you're doing more. I recommend it. I've got a big box of them that I bought for my family, and slowly starting to introduce those to my kids who are just now getting into some of those upper age ranges where they can really read this and have it digest and make sense, and then reading them together. So Connor, any last words? I really appreciate you coming on. It's always great to see you. We'll have you on again soon, but Anything else you want to leave people with?
Yeah, last words for now are just, guys, we have to be so intentional about this because our kids are being bombarded with all kinds of negative messaging. And there are many people out there who disagree with our values and principles and perspectives that are coming after our kids. And it's increasingly overt, it's increasingly aggressive. We have to do our part as parents, as grandparents. We have to shield our kids from a lot of these ideas and teach them truth. Again, a lot of parents are insecure in doing that. They feel that they're incompetent or maybe ignorant and they don't really know. We're here to help. So go check out the Tuttle Twins books. Use the link in the description below so that the credit will go and maybe you'll end up winning the Boston Vacation giveaway.
Awesome. All right, Connor, thanks for coming on. We'll see you next time.
Appreciate it. See ya.
Yep.
School taught me that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Pluto isn't a planet.
In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Thanks, school.
Did school teach you how to start a small business?
Pluto isn't a planet.
Schools don't prepare your kids for the real world. And sure, your kids are learning some important skills like reading, writing, and basic math, but do you know what they're not learning? Critical thinking, personal responsibility, how the world really works. So after class, they come home with some useless factoids about photosynthesis that won't prepare them for the real world at all. Well, unless they're gonna become a flower doctor. Over 50% of you are dissatisfied with your kids' education, and almost 100% of you don't have the tools to make it better. Today's schools are focused on turning your kids into fact-spouting robots, but true education should help them become free-thinking, independent adults, able to adapt in an ever-changing world. That's why I have my kids read The Tuttle Twins, an award-winning book series that teaches them how the world really works. So instead of learning how many protons boron has, The Tuttle Twins will teach them essential principles about the free market, entrepreneurship, personal responsibility. You know, the stuff every kid needs but no school teaches. Do you wish your kids knew how money actually works and why we have so much inflation? Read The Creature from Jekyll Island. Inspire your kids to start their own small business by reading The Spectacular Show Business. Or they can learn about what our rights are and how to protect them in The Tuttle Twins Learn About the Law. What school teaches your kids these crucial lessons? Mine doesn't, but at least they know how to make paper snowflakes. Here are some happy readers from the millions of books sold. I think my kids now understand more about how the free market works than most of Congress. Marcos. The Tuttle Twins have given my kids an interest in things I wouldn't think they would have been able to understand or even be interested in learning. Amanda. That's what's so great about the Tuttle Twins. They're fun and easy to read books that will leave you saying, my daughter loves all of them. She's read them all multiple times without me even asking her to. I didn't make that up, that's a real review. So if you want your kids to be free thinkers instead of fact memorizers, then click the link below for your set of the Tuttle Twins with free activity workbooks.